We've all seen those PSAs on TV aimed at young people to prevent them from smoking cigarettes. They usually show a teenager that's depressed or anxious that turns to smoking to cope and ends up worse off for it. Today, I'll be talking to you about the dangers of smoking and vaping and why you shouldn't smoke. This topic is particularly important to me because I used to smoke for 3 years and then I recently was able to quit vaping as well. When I was 18, I moved to England to become a nanny. And when I got to England, I realized that a lot of the English like to smoke. And I unfortunately gave into peer pressure and I wanted to be able to blend into the environment. So I started smoking as well. And I unfortunately picked up a habit that causes 1 in 5 deaths in the US each year. Big Tobacco has been manipulating generations for years. And today I'll be informing you about their lies. The first reason why you shouldn't smoke is the effect on your health. Smoking is related to preventable causes of death like coronary heart disease, stroke, and heart attack, and other chronic conditions. According to Lee, it kills more than half of the people that use it. I don't know about you, but I don't love those odds. According to the CDC, smoking takes 10 years off of your life. This doesn't even account for the time that you actually spend smoking, like going out and taking a 10-minute break on your lunch and actually the time you take smoking. So not smoking can add decades to your life. While smoking is directly correlated with cancer, death, and stroke, another reason why you shouldn't smoke is because big tobacco as a whole is a corrupt industry. It's a very manipulative organization. Tobacco is directly trying to manipulate you. Big tobacco has a history of manipulating people. In the 1950s, people started realizing that cigarettes weren't as healthy as they thought they were. And as people were getting suspicious, cigarette companies invented something called filters. They're the things at the tip of a cigarette that are white and they turn to yellow while you're smoking. And this is to trick people into thinking that it's filtering out toxic chemicals, when in reality, it's really just going through a process of changing the color of the filter. And according to UNDO, they actually don't filter any chemicals and are even linked to a certain type of lung cancer. I find this particularly shocking because they're using something that's supposed to trick you into thinking it's healthier, and it's actually causing a different kind of cancer. Another way that the cigarettes companies manipulate you is by convincing you that cigarette butts are biodegradable. Also, according to UNDO, vapes and cigarettes are in their own toxic waste category and making it almost impossible for them to be disposed of properly. The main way that tobacco is able to manipulate you as a modern generation is through the idea that vaping is a safe alternative to smoking. You also shouldn't vape because the effects of vaping are very unknown. Public outcry for cigarettes and the harms that they causes tobacco companies to look for safer alternatives. The current safe alternative that they're looking at is something called HTPs. HTPs are heated tobacco products, or on the street, they're called vapes. HTPs are blowing up worldwide and account for about 10% of total nicotine use worldwide. But don't be fooled because HTPs are also dangerous. According to Blaha, there's no doubt that vaping allows you to consume fewer toxic chemicals. Blaha states that vaping is a safer alternative to cigarette use because it's actually aimed at helping you quit cigarettes. While this is a really valid point, I have to disagree because in 2019, there was an outbreak of vaping-related lung injuries among young people. According to Kachmar, over 2,800 people under 34 were seriously sickened and 68 people actually died. While vaping may help you quit cigarette use, it's definitely not the safe alternative that consumers believe it to be. Smoking is incredibly harmful to society. You shouldn't smoke because it will shorten your lifespan. The tobacco industry is manipulative, and because even if you think vaping is an alternative option, it's really not as safe as you think it is. After I stopped smoking, personally, my anxiety went way down and I physically felt healthier. I was able to go on runs a lot longer, and I just thought that the way that I was feeling when I was breathing was how you were supposed to feel. I hope this speech has inspired you to live a smoke-free life. Let me share my screen. Here we go. Can you see that? Cool. So there are 7,000 chemicals found in each cigarette, and they can cause all of these different kinds of health effects. that the fact that there's so many chemicals in them is reason enough to want to quit. So here are some ways that you can quit smoking. Behavioral therapy is obviously a good way to quit. And if you have access to therapy, that's great too. Abrupt cessation is a way that a lot of people do, but this is risky because the adverse effects of when you quit might cause you to start again. Cessation drugs and acupuncture. Personally, I use cessation drugs on the right. I have some of them. There's Nicorette gum and then Nicoderm patch. These are great because they can slowly wean you off of nicotine versus just abruptly stopping and having withdrawals. Yeah. The great news is if you, at any age, when you quit, there's advantages. So this graph shows you between 30 and to 60 years old, you can get some of those years back that you've lost. While it might make you feel cool in the moment, smoking cigarettes is not worth your life. Okay, thank you.
I just want to say thank you for being so transparent about the addiction that you had. And I want to congratulate you on your recovery because that's a really big thing. And personally, I live with someone who smokes and I gave up smoking weed. So it's like really hard, especially when you're living with someone. So I think definitely you gave a lot of good resources. You spoke very confidently and I really liked your hand gestures when you were explaining things. It was really easy to follow and very interesting. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was a really, really good speech. I also fell victim to vaping for a couple years, and then last year, I'm coming up on a year. It was my New Year's resolution to quit like all forms of smoking, and I'm almost there. But the benefits are absolutely insane, physically and mentally. But yeah, just like kind of understanding how it affects like the dopamine levels in your brain really is what really like helped me figure out why it's so bad for you. And it was interesting what you said about the yellow tips of like the cigarettes. I didn't know about that either, but yeah, I think it's something that's completely ruined some people in our society. And I have a couple friends that are still doing it. I try to convince them, and they just, they're like so addicted. It's like hard for them to understand how it works. But yeah, I think it was really important for us to learn a little bit more about. So thank you.
So,
Thanks.
so this isn't a very easy topic to talk about for anyone, especially since you brought up your own experience with it. And I think I can, speak for everyone here that everyone knows somebody who smokes, and it's always like if you don't smoke, even if you smoke, sometimes it may be tough to see those close around you smoking. I know for me, um, seeing my parents smoke was never a great sight. And while I never got hooked on cigarettes, I got hooked onto a different substance. I mean, obviously on off it now, but all of these different substances, and especially seeing like those close around you engage in some of these substances is such a tough sight to see. And again, not an easy topic, but I really appreciated that you talked about it and how you let your personal experience not get in the way of you talking about this subject, because it's not an easy subject, especially for any former users. And I would just like to say how grateful I am that you did this speech.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you also for being vulnerable because, like, even with you just sharing that, like, one snippet of your story, like, you're allowing us to also open up with you. And I feel like it's giving us a connection. Like, you guys are saying, I just started in this group and I already feel like connected to you guys. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you chose a really great speech topic and you did a really good job with the delivery and you spoke very clearly. So good job on that aspect as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed the speech a lot. It really hits a lot of theme today, recurring theme on health. And it just shows that like we're all like this whole entire group has been mindful of our health and trying to improve. And yeah. Thank you.
Definitely thank you for sharing with us and congrats on quitting. I think that's a testament, like building up your ethos that it's just so worth it to quit. And honestly, I've had my grandmother had lung cancer. And so there's no like 100%, where it comes from, but she did have like secondhand smoke exposure from her mom. And so it does hit close to home.
Thank you all for sharing. And then I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and recording.